We just got screwed yet a freaking again, guys. Oh my days. So for anybody that does not know, USDC just depegged. Actually hours ago already, but it's down roughly 9% at 91 cents. The lowest point it went to is about 85 cents, and it is driving me crazy. Why? Well, because why does this have to keep happening time after time after time again? We were just done with the whole UST situation, and even though it is vastly different, this comes because of what I described to you guys yesterday. If you guys remember in my yesterday's video, I described in depth in 2 videos what happened with the US Silicon Valley Bank. They basically took themselves down, and I also told you guys that Circle had some of their reserves there. They were exposed to the bank. Now me, with my tiny little brain, I did not fathom the consequences that this would have, because when they mentioned that they had some sort of exposure, I didn't think too much of it. Like with almost any one of these little banks going down, I thought, it will be fine. And I even read to you guys that this is the biggest banking shutdown since the big crash in such crazy history, and the second biggest crash in the banking system ever. Yet I remained ignorant and foolish, because in retrospect, what happened is a little bit deeper. Now, am I really worried about the whole situation for crypto? No, and I'm still holding all my crypto. I'm not taking anything out. But what I am a little bit worried about is how this whole USDC situation is going to be fixed, because there are many signs showcasing it's really just a temporary measure. But from another perspective, it's also quite logical to expect that USDC will not be repegged for at least another couple of days, and potentially, well, let's talk about it. So Rand Nooner from Crypto Banter had an interesting opinion on it by stating this. Is my logic here correct? Circle has 3.3 billion at the Silicon Valley Bank, divided over 39 billion. It's about an 8.5% loss. As again, 3.3 billion was at the bank, which right now went down. They closed their own doors. So is that then lost? Question mark. In this case, the peg should be 0.915, excluding recoveries from SVB, because that's basically their backing. But if Circle continued to redeem USDC as per agreements, the 3.3 billion remains the same, but the base decreases, meaning as time progresses and more people redeem their dollars, basically the USDC for dollars, this peg is going to keep weakening, meaning eventually the price should, theoretically speaking, just keep going down piece by piece. Now, they've closed everything down. Coinbase has closed their conversions down. Binance has closed their conversions down. And Greg says, Circle has 40.2 billion in liquid reserves without 3.3 billion in SVB. There is 40.9 billion USDC in circulation. Circle is $700 million short to meet the 1-to-1 redemptions. If they mark down the SVB deposit to 0, which is unlikely, SVB depositors will likely get deposit certificates next week that Circle can borrow. Meaning, at the end of the day here, even though things look quite bad, the amount of money that Circle had in all this can probably quite easily be recouped, and it can kind of, quote unquote, be bailed out of all this, out of the whole bad situation. There's also a little bit of a deeper story that goes into the insurances that are here, which can back people up, the FDIC insurance up to $250,000, which keeps me thinking like, hey, should I just, sell at a loss, 8% loss or whatever, and then just, put the rest, another $250,000 onto insurance? Because, well, it's not as if USDC is a small company, right? Circle is properly backed and they have all the proper licenses. So it's not as if this can't get fixed, if you guys understand my drift. It's like, if Circle really goes down, it basically means we really can't trust the entire US banking system, because, well, that's where the root of this problem lies in all this. Anyway, to describe it a little bit further, you can see right here, people have been going crazy on USDC depegging, and the lowest point I've seen it hit now on Bybit at least was 85 cents. You can see here Coinbase also temporarily pausing their USDC to USD conversions. However, they have stated that this is just done for right now over the weekend while the banks are closed. During periods of heightened activity, conversions rely on USD transfers from banks that clear. during normal banking hours. And when banks open up on Monday, we plan to recommence conversions. Your assets remain safe and available for on-chain sends, which makes me think, well, even though Silicon Valley Bank won't ever open again, in theory, there shouldn't be that much wrong unless the entire banking system collapses, because as of another point, everything is properly backed by US papers, whatnot, so it's really not that bad. Anyway, there's also something more going on. Binance has temporarily suspended auto conversion of USDC to BUSD due to market conditions, just to protect their entire system. And let's now quickly read into what Circle has tweeted. Following the confirmation at the end of today that the wires initiated on Thursday to remove balances were not yet processed, $3.3 billion of the $40 billion of USDC reserves remain at SVB. Like other customers and depositors who relied on SVB for banking services, Circle joins calls for continuity of this important bank in the US economy and will follow guidance provided by state and federal regulators. This is, by the way, all these stuffs are fake. Make sure you don't fall for it. These guys just bought blue verification, but it's fake, so don't get your money stolen right there. But yeah, it's like I said, quite peculiar. So Circle earlier said as well at 3 a.m., Silicon Valley Bank is one of 6 banking partners Circle uses for managing the 25% portion of USDC reserves held in cash. While we await clarity on how the FDIC receivership of SVB will impact its depositors, Circle and USDC continue to operate normally. And if you check on their website, well, even though some things are blocked right now, it's basically going on the way in which we anticipated. The reserves are looking quite fine. This was updated a couple of days ago. But if you subtract a little bit, of this cash reserve at banks, honestly, things are not that weird, not that wild. I mean, if you read the fine print here, Circle invests a portion of the reserves back in USDC in the Circle Reserve Fund, a SEC-registered government money market fund which holds a portfolio of short-dated US Treasuries and cash. And from that perspective, I'm thinking, well, they really, from most perspectives, let's quickly check this out. This is over on BlackRock, by the way. They really can't go that wrong over the longer term. And so even though there is a little bit of downside possible for USDC on the short term, with the backing that they've got, with the backing that Circle has got, it's kind of strange that they can't bail themselves out of this situation, or that the bigger parties in the US won't bail them out of the situation. So it looks as if the majority of this is just major FUD, because again, the price going to 85 cents is just fear on top of fear on top of fear. But again, if you just look at how much they're holding and what they've got in backing, so to speak, because again, they've thought of all this. They've got a couple $2 billion in the back end of things. It kept me thinking, like, okay, unless all these different guys are going down, the Bank of New York Mellon and all those, BlackRock is also still here, right? So it's not that much money if you think about it in comparison to what they've all got. Coin Bureau said you could literally have tweeted "steady lads" and it would have been more reassuring than this tweet, which is true, because this tweet itself here at 4 a.m. did warn a lot of people that, hey, something crazy is going on, but they basically said, hey, we keep about 25% of our USDC reserves in cash, and we'll basically have to see what happens, because, it wasn't really reassuring. It was more actually of a warning sort of tweet. You can see here Dante saying, Circle is currently protecting USDC from a black swan failure in the US banking system. SVB Financial is a critical bank in the US economy, and its failure without a federal rescue plan will have broader implications for business, banking, and entrepreneurs. Because think about it, guys. This bank failing is not only bad for crypto, but it's bad for another whole realm of banks, right? So it's really crazy if you start thinking about it. Like, okay, we shouldn't go for banks, we should go for crypto. But then as you go for crypto, you still get screwed because the banks are getting screwed. It's kind of funny. This is obviously not good for the S&P. This is obviously not good for anything. Dante also said, as with Silvergate, our teams have worked at speed to limit any exposure to banks, and this includes a wire transfer request made before SVB's FDIC receivership. At $3.3 billion cash exposure remains, but we will follow state and federal regulatory guidance. The principal balance of USDC reserves are held in the Circle Reserve Fund, 80% short-dated US Treasuries, and across other US banks. We would join the calls for policymakers, regulators, investors, businesses, and most of all, people who rely on a well-functioning U.S. banking system as a condition precedent of growing an economy. We will all be smarter on Monday. Robert says, a black swan is an unknowable unknown. A fractional reserve bank blowing up is the norm and is certainly not a black swan. Wendy O said, did you really just say this was a failure in the U.S. banking system, so it's not crypto's fault? Where I would also say he's not completely wrong, as even though it's partially backed by crypto, a lot of this stuff, like Silvergate, it's like a little bit of and it has bigger implications caused, I guess, by the whole Luna situation and the whole Alameda reserve sheets being showcased and CZ saying some stuff about it. It's kind of funny how all this started and how we're almost a year further after the initial crashes and things are still continuing on in that wake of sorts. But to be honest, I just cashed out a good portion of my USDC because I do not want to take the risk. As I've said to you guys before, the biggest loss I ever took in my life was with UST, and it hit me hard because the market was down a lot already, and then to cash out the majority of my stable coins that were in UST for like a penny on the dollar, yeah, that was a hard hit, and I just don't want to have that same sort of situation because even though I think they'll recoup, everything looks as if they'll recoup, I'm not 100% certain because the banking system could just kind of fail to back this up and kind of let Circle die out. It's possible. And from dying out, again, how this will work, we'll have to see. Because if we take a year-long scope, do I think USDC will get back to $1? I believe so. I'm personally quite convinced. Could there be more negativity in the midst though? Yes. And could there also be more negativity with bigger implications on crypto in the short term? Yes, as well. So this is major, major news. Very, very negative. Unless you see it from the perspective of crypto regulation, because obviously in the midst of things, it is going to set a new stage for crypto regulation with all this happening, even though in the beginning it will be bad. At the end of the day, it will not be. Again, guys, I want you all to understand, the backers of this, I know it's a little bit skewed to the right, but it's fine, are BlackRock behind Circle and behind most of their decisions. It's all backed by the SEC as well. It's all properly registered. From that perspective, I'm thinking, again, this can only go wrong if the entire U.S. banking system right now is on the collapse of sorts, which is possible, but unlikely. From that perspective, it's just a lot of FUD. It's a lot of negativity. It's a lot of troubles for right now, which is, by the way, artificially pumping the Bitcoin price a little bit. The reason I cashed out is because I'm just not playing these games anymore. And I'd rather, let's say you have $1 million, right? You have to take a very big hit of $90,000. But if you look back to the whole USD situation, even though it's different, as you could only redeem to Luna, which went to 0, so you could basically redeem it for nothing. With this, you can redeem it for $1. It's like, yeah, do you want to take the risk? I'd say it's a 50-50. It's a slippery slope. I can't advise you. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm just saying it's a very, very difficult situation. And as of this point, I'm thinking my best course of action is cash some out and leave some for it to even out. There could be a little bit more drawdown on the short term. I do believe it will get fixed in time, though. But be prepared for a major shift. Be prepared for some crazy stuff to happen. Be prepared for some massive amounts of FUD and just craziness all over the place. Yeah, and oh my days, why did this have to happen to us again, guys? I just thought we were done with things. But yeah, be prepared for a bumpy freaking ride in the crypto space right now. Just wanted to inform you all about this. See you guys later in another one.